It is a great pleasure to follow the noble lady Baroness Noakes and to congratulate her on the first half of her contribution, which has clearly identified a crucial problem, which has been missed undoubtedly by numerous other eyes, while actually entirely disagreeing with the second part of her contribution, referring to Part 4 of Clause 76. And I would actually, in commenting on that, and I know I don't often find myself in a position of defending what essentially is the government position, but and perhaps that I'm about to preempt entirely what the noble lady the Minister is about to say. But I think if you look at Clause 4, it says if the contracting authority is aware of circumstances. So it doesn't say we expect the contracting authority to be clairvoyant and know of every single circumstances where a reasonable person might. It's saying that... and we all know this, if we think about local councils, and having been on another continent, but as a local journalist, and I'm thinking here of a case with a very large city authority that just kept commissioning a certain architect to do a whole series of projects, and that ended up raising considerable public concern. Now, if that is happening, you can see the reason why it would make sense to preempt the explanation of why that there isn't the conflict of interest, there isn't the problem here. And I think it's also worth pointing out that this, the amendment put down by the noble Lord Moylan said that this was a subjective judgment that would then affect the letting of the contract, and that doesn't actually affect the letting of the contract. It just says there must be details of the steps included. So I would defend, if the government feels like it needs to be defended, subclause 4 of 76. But what I chiefly, before I get to that, I do also just briefly want to apologise. I attached my name to a number of amendments in the previous group, which I was meaning to be here to speak to. Unfortunately, events intervened and I couldn't be, but apologies for that. But I still stand behind all of those. But coming to this group, I've attached my name to a number in various combinations of the names of the noble Lord Wallace of Saltaire, Lord Scriven, and the noble Lady Baroness Brinton. And these are all really, as the noble Lord Scriven has very clearly outlined, and I won't go over the same ground. The boardroom review is there. It's reported in May 2021. That allows plenty of time for this to have been included in this bill, even though all of the hurry and the rush we know has been around it. And I would also point out, I think something that the noble Lord Scriven didn't say, is the government at the time that the Boardman report came out said, we accept all of these recommendations. So if the government has accepted those recommendations, then they surely should be incorporated in this bill. I just pick up one amendment that I didn't sign, although I would have if I'd noticed it. 413, in the name of the noble Lord Wallace of Saltaire, noting that a donation or loan of more than £7,500 to any political party in the calendar year should be declared. I think we're talking about transparency, we're talking about trust. That's obviously a very practical, simple, not very hard to implement step that will be well worthwhile. But I think particularly coming to the group 421, 422 and 423, these are all about undue influence, preventing undue influence. And like the noble lady Baroness Brinton, I particularly want to concentrate on 423, in that this is an area where there is huge public concern about the revolving door. And I note that my honourable friend in the other place, Caroline Lucas, is someone who's done a huge amount of work on this issue, dating back in Hansard to at least 2013, in the defence sector, in the energy sector, the concern about the revolving door. And that's not a concern just restricted to the Green Party. I was just looking through some of the reports. In 2011, Transparency International UK put out a report titled "Revolving Door Between Government and Business is, quote, spinning out of control." And if it was spinning out of control in 2011, I think we're in jet engine speeds of revolution by this stage. In 2016, the Centre for Crime and Justice Studies, in a report titled Redefining Corruption, said the public wants a ban on the revolving door. Now, this amendment is much less than a ban. It's a very modest 6 months. and I'm not altogether sure that it shouldn't be longer than that, but there's certainly great public concern about this. And also in 2017, the Committee on Standards in Public Life expressed concern about the revolving door. And I think the noble lady Baroness Brinton set out one very disturbing case. I think there's another disturbing case. If you look at 2020, We Own It highlighted the interaction between Serco and Heston Trace, and the degree in which there has been a revolving door between Serco and the senior civil service, such to the point where a former head of public affairs of Serco became a health minister. I'm not quite sure how many health ministers back, but a health minister at some point anyway. And just one final reflection, something that really shouldn't be forgotten, the Green Cell scandal, and just look at the mess that arose in part as a result of a revolving door, and indeed it wasn't even a revolving door, it was in some cases people stuck in the same door at the same time, apparently representing both private interests and public government interests at the same time. And around that Green Cell scandal, the Advisory Committee on Business Appointments noted that there were thousands of potential cases, but it had only looked at 108. So there's no way the Advisory Committee on Business Appointments, there's lots of discussion about limits to its power. It can't possibly cover this. We've really got to start from the other side of the contracts.